Okay, let's resume the meeting. Next one is Dr. Edward Yu. 4 minutes. Yes, can I start? Yes, please. Undersecretary, you should consider hiring me as your assistant. A lot of members have raised questions, and there should be standard answers to those, including a member has asked about the loan, the interest on the loans taken out for many of the loans. That would be the standard rate will apply. If you look at the IAB's general conditions for sovereign-backed loans, the paper says that it will have the LIBOR plus fixed spread as the standard interest. So that's a question easy to answer. About risk, the AIB's risk in taking out loans, the risk is quite high. They admit it as well. So you don't have to tell colleagues that you don't know about this and that it doesn't fall within the responsibility of the HKSARG. Indeed, there is risk assessment for every project. And for many of the projects, they are considered high-risk projects. And even for one, there is one project which sets that the risk is BBB minus. The sovereign risk is BBB minus. So this is a kind of a junk rating as far as credit rating is concerned. So you have to give a clear picture to us for the interest of AIIB is very, very low. You can go on online to check the LIBOR is near to zero. And even if there is an additional fixed spread, then the interest is still very low. You can consider it as zero interest, in fact. And they also admit that many of the projects come with high risk, and for some sovereign rating, for some projects, it's BBB minus. So, Undersecretary, you can explain to members when there is a low interest and high risk scenario here, how can you convince Hong Kong people that we should have this subscription to shares? And Undersecretary, according to the AIIB's calculation, while Mr. Tam asked about the interest level, the interest level is based on the 6-month LIBOR plus fixed spread. That's how they calculate it. This is a floating rate. So there is no fixed figure or a fixed rate to say 2% or 3%. So it depends on the 6-month LIBOR plus a fixed spread. Now, as for risk, BBB was not just junk rating, is investment grade. Although it's BBB minus, I'm not going to debate with members on how the sovereign rating should be like. Should we have a double B or double C? The question is for such development banks that they are there to help poor countries which need development, and they are helping them with building infrastructure projects, and they need financing for driving their economic development. So the credit rating is not very high usually. It's not like we have an A grade and so on. So because we're talking about poor countries which are in need, Mr. Abraham Sheikh, the BPA supports this item. I would like to answer Mr. Raymond Chan's question. He asked the Undersecretary how that can be a good demonstration of the one country, two systems principle. In the U.S. Parliament yesterday, Hong Kong residents asked the U.S. Parliament to help us ensure that one country, two systems principle is implemented, and that the promises in the joint declaration is are being implemented. Hong Kong is not a sovereign state, but not many organizations allow us to join their organizations as members. So we don't have to go to the U.S. $6 billion is a very small sum. It can help ensure the one country, two systems principle is being realized. I was dozing off just then. When he asked his question, I woke up. I think I can answer his question. We don't need to go to the U.S. Just approve this item expeditiously, and then we are realizing the one country, two systems principle. Mr. Holden Chow, 4 minutes. Many pan-democratic members have said a lot of things, and they are ignorant about Hong Kong, the Chinese diplomatic tactics. The China is talking about AIIB all the time, and some members said that we should not join as members, and we should not spend the money to do so. Well, let's think about this, Chairman. All along, Hong Kong has joined many international organizations, and we are joining it as in the capacity of the SAR, and they've never raised any objection back then. And for this project, well, the administration has explained many times, if we become a member, and then we should be looking at the long-term benefits. Mr. Eddie G has responded to my earlier comment. In the past, U.S. did actually what they did. They have to help other people, other countries' economy, and then later on they could sort of cement the political ties with them. And if the economy was developed, then they would give some benefits to the U.S. in return. So through the AIIB, maybe some the economies of some countries will become more developed, and maybe Hong Kong can attract investment from these countries in the future. So in the long term, we stand to benefit. So why is it that so many members are against it? And if we can join AIIB as a member, it can highlight Hong Kong's status in an international city. Why should we object it so much? So, Chairman, I hope that we should be clear about this. I support this item. We want Hong Kong to become a member of the AIIB. Mr. Eddie G, 4 minutes. Chairman, on this debate about the AIIB, this is a very important debate. Why? We talked about Belt and Road Initiative, but then, well, Chinese people didn't have a chance to debate on it and show whether they are supported or not. And China takes up 26% of the overall share in the AIIB. Maybe we don't agree with China's policy in, say, in the South China Sea. And I don't know why, Chairman, you should refute my remarks, whether it is the strategy towards the South China Sea or a policy towards the mid-Asia. They would try to, through the AIIB, gain the political support from countries in mid-Asia. But at the same time, they're not. China is not asking these countries to become more democratic. Well, their friends in the mid-Asia are just like China in that respect. And in Hong Kong, at the LegCo, we do have the chance to debate on the subject or the matter. We can even talk about or discuss whether China should adopt such a strategic direction. Now, specifically, I would like to say something about structure. Chairman, on the website, I've read through certain reports which can be downloaded. There are several international financial organizations, World Bank, ADB, etc. They differ from AIIB in one respect. They do have the board of directors, board of governors, and they do have the administration team, so to speak. But then for the board of directors of these organizations, they are actually stationed in the headquarters permanently. So in terms of the bank's decisions, they participate actively. But for AIIB, well, it's special in a way. For the board of directors of AIIB, they will not be stationed long-term at the headquarters. They will fly there once every year. Well, maybe they held 6 meetings in 2016, and going by the minutes, it seemed that they are acting like a rubber stamp. It was the president who leads the team. The team will make certain recommendations to be approved by the board of directors, and the president, of course, now is an ex-official of the Chinese authorities, and the chairman of the board of governors is also someone from China, and for the president, is also he also comes from China. And I'd like to ask the undersecretary. So in that kind of composition or structure, China has a great say. So Hong Kong has only 0.7% in our voting power. And in terms of vetting specific projects, Hong Kong doesn't have any chance to participate in the process. Undersecretary, with regard to our participation, we would participate through our constituency. So to speak, there are even smaller members, and we are maybe in a constituency, there are 6 to 7 members that will be participating to varying degree, and they do have the chance to talk to the board of directors or the directors in their constituency to express their views. And it's not that you just have only 0.7% and you have a smaller say. No, that's not the case. And voting, I mean, is more important in a way. And the member talked about the board of directors is a non-resident board. They are not stationed in Beijing. But that doesn't mean that they have less participation and their power to scrutinize a project is less. No. When the AIIB was established, they agreed that the headquarters should be located in Beijing, and actually for some other organizations like the ADB, they spend a lot in having the board of directors living in the headquarters, and they think that they would adopt a different approach so that they would be spending less money in that regard. Mr. Jeremy Tam, 3 minutes. I would also like to follow up on the 2 earlier questions that I raised. And first, for the projects which have been approved already, do you have an approximate interest level, LIBOR, plus a certain percentage or what? And also, have you considered that for the financing of the 3 rate systems of AHK, if we are to become a member in the future, can we borrow loans, say, or take out financing from the AIIB? As I said, for AIIB, they would be using the 6-month LIBOR plus the spread to be the interest level, but they are not making public the spread information. Now, for the 6-month LIBOR is now 1.433%. Now, the spread may fluctuate, and for the 3 run rate financing, given Hong Kong's state of development and our economic conditions, they would not think that we need to borrow money from AIIB, because AIIB is there really to help the less developed countries who are in greater need for financing for their infrastructure projects. So Hong Kong may not be, deemed a suitable borrower. So I will save my question for the next round. Mr. Eddie G, 3 minutes. When we discuss the matter, well, say for Hong Kong joining some international organizations or partnerships, colleagues very often look at the monetary aspect. If we talk about the Great Bay Area, we also look at the money aspect only. And in fact, I think if we are to participate in international organizations, we should have a certain mission. We should have a long-term vision for the development of Asia. And the Undersecretary says there's a 0.7% voting power, and we still can wield some influence. I would like to ask the government, do you have a long-term vision for the development of Asia? What are the problems you are facing here? And, well, the objective one for them is really to do financing. But what about other problems in Asia, say destruction to the environment, the corruption problem, and also the wealth gap, the serious wealth gap? So when the Hong Kong SARG participates in the AIIB, do you have certain concepts on how to help the development of Asia?
When AIIB was set up, they did look into the strategy in terms of the environment, and the corruption. They have issued documents to set out their views on the environment and governance policy, social issues, and they also have a policy on information disclosure. I know you keep talking about they. If we are a member, then we would be part of they. So what kind of issues would you like to bring up in your vision for Asia? Not just to make money, right? I was trying to explain that the AIB has already got such policies. When the policies were devised, we were not a member, so we did not have the chance to participate. What is your vision? What's the vision that you want to offer in becoming a member? And what aspects would you like to enhance and improve in presenting such a vision? Mr. Leung Kok-hong. Mr. G's questions are a total waste of time. AIB is obviously a lender for the Belt and Road Initiative. The idea is to lend money to some countries to provide solutions to China's problems. For example, excessive capacity, and the second, excessive capital. So what they are trying to do will be no different from the U.S. They have got something that they cannot sell, so they give money to another party to buy the things they cannot sell, and then they would establish a financial dominance position. Well, we cannot stop that. We cannot stop the Chinese communists from doing this. The question is, why do we want to lock up $6 billion of our money? If we keep on doing this, we have various sums locked up for different purposes, such as the future fund. When we want to have social innovation or improvements, then you talk about funding problems. There's an opportunity cost involved here by committing the $6 billion. We have patients of rare diseases who need special medicines. We can improve our drug formulary. But you keep saying no. And now we spend $6 billion to play along with these members of AIB. It's meaningless. All right. Only Mr. Nathan Law is in the queue. Once again, I would like to appeal to members who are not in this meeting room to come back to join us if they have questions to ask. 2 minutes, Mr. Law. I want to respond to Mr. Abraham Shack's point that the $6 billion is good money spent to prove that the one country, two systems principle is alive and well. And we participate in Olympic Games as Hong Kong, China. So I just don't understand how our status can be highlighted by committing $6 billion to AIB. The government has not given us any data to substantiate the claim that is AIB membership is a good thing, and there is it's just an infrastructure that we blindly invest in. Some members are correct in pointing out that the real objective is about China's strategy to extend its political influence and to cooperate in the field of petroleum and gas. Are we going to spend $6 billion to encourage China to do this, or to encourage China to realize its political ambition? So it's a political question. It's just wrong to dress it up as a infrastructure issue. So are we going to support our big brother? That's the real question. And I agree with Mr. Leung Ko-hong that this is not going to benefit our interests, and $6 billion will not enhance our status. If we have a further round, I have a question about the money that we have already spent. Mr. Chan Chi-chin. Thank you. This document doesn't say a lot about one particular issue. And if 2/3 of the governors, and if the voting right is less than 3%, then according to paragraph 4(3), the issue capital of AIB can be increased. And Hong Kong cannot object to any suggestion to increase capital. We only got the voting right of 0.7%. So remember the Disneyland funding incident? So we should assume that these international banks will increase capital over a period of time. The ADB has done it 5 times, and then there were an additional capital of 300 million raised. Is that the expenditure on infrastructure in Asia is $2.7 trillion, and China is eager to extend its political influence. So the $100 billion will be spent very soon. When more capital or more shares are issued and capital is going to be raised, are we forced to contribute more? Are we obliged to participate in the capital raising exercise? If they raise more capital for a development bank like this, they would review the financial position once every few years. For a new bank such as AIIB, and since it's in the initial stage, and as they have indicated in the earlier meetings, they are not likely going to raise capital. But if big economies which have not yet joined the AIIB subsequently decide to join, because of the size of the economy, in calculating the GDP, they should have a bigger share. That's why the $100 billion of share would not be sufficient to give them the requisite shareholding, and there may be a need to raise capital and increase the share capital. But existing members can decide not to participate in the exercise, but then that would mean a dilution of their shareholding and voting percentage. So that's a presumption, right? Are we going to follow suit if there's a capital raising exercise? Are we going to do it? Well, if that's the case, we'll come back to this council to ask for funding. I did ask a similar question at the last meeting. There was insufficient time, so the government didn't offer an answer. Whether we are going to increase our investment or commitment is for the future SAR government. And of course, it would take a very important decision on the part of China on the question of the articles. If we do not contribute in a capital exercise, apart from dilution of our shareholding, are there other consequences? No, according to my understanding. If the capital is to be increased, let's say, for example, it's just an illustration. You say that in the near future it's unlikely that a higher capital will be needed. Can you tell us that for at least for the coming 5 years there will be no need to raise capital, or if there's one, we are not going to be part of it? Well, it's really a hypothetical question. The power to increase our share. I was talking about the government not going to propose our participation in such a capital raising exercise. Well, we wouldn't know at this stage the reasons for raising the capital. Well, whatever the reasons may be, will the government undertake or promise that for a certain period of time into the future, say 5 or 10 years, we're not going to increase our shareholding? This is a steer by Beijing. You claim that this is not related to the Belt and Road Initiative. I don't think that's the case. Let's say the SAR government is obliged to participate in the building of international projects as a means to foster goodwill. But if you keep doing this, Hong Kong people may think that this is not all right. We may want to do a little bit to keep some parties' face, but there must be a limit. I don't think we can make a pledge like that at this stage. Mr. Leung Ko-hong, 1 minute. The PLC is a major shareholder of the AIB. $30.34 billion come from China in the $100 billion of capital for AIB. It's the major parties. What's the loan? You mean external loans, external debt? No, the loan. The debt owed to her people, M2, comparing the M2 with assets held. I don't have the information. I can tell you that the ratio is more than 200%, higher than that for the US. Please press the button again. Mr. Nathan Law, 1 minute. Actually, $6 million have been spent on AIB in paragraph 15. It said that from the end of 2015, 3 civil servants have been seconded to the AIB at a cost of $6 million. What do you mean by the management? Are you talking about the board of governors, board of directors, or individual officers from the AIB? So without joining the AIB, we have deployed civil servants to work for the AIB. Have you secured the approval of this council? Would they be acting beyond their authorization in doing this? When AIB asks for our secondment, it's about helping them to set up their systems and the administrative system and in the budgeting system and so on and so forth. As regards whether we need to secure finance committee approval, we're talking about incumbent officers, and we believe it's a good thing for Hong Kong to help the AIB to set up these systems. There's no need to seek approval from this council. Well, I've heard many times that they are not in favor of Hong Kong joining this. They have not given us any justifications apart from saying that this is not going to benefit Hong Kong. This is really strange. We know that AIB is an important strategy for China, and as a matter of fact, AIB can improve in many countries in Asia their infrastructure, and will certainly entrench our status as an international financial center. I don't see how AIB can affect would affect our status or would not benefit Hong Kong. I don't know what the opposition camp is trying to achieve. Are we going to close our doors and we'll do nothing, invest in nothing? We will not participate in any international affairs? Would it be the best course of action for Hong Kong? We know that in Asia, many countries are catching up. If we close our doors, we would fall behind. It's a dead end for Hong Kong. So there's no reason why we should not participate in infrastructure projects with many other Asian countries and cities. We have discussed the item for a long time, and many questions have been asked and replies have been given by the official. And still, I cannot be convinced that there will be disadvantages for Hong Kong. It's just that they don't believe there will be benefits. Well, your disbelief doesn't necessarily imply that there will be no benefits for Hong Kong. So I hope we can proceed to vote on the item quickly. I've checked LIBOR. LIBOR can be checked on the internet. Let me talk about the return and risk. It's a 1.427. Let's say what the fixed rate is 1.5. So AIB loans would have a return rate of 2.577%. If you buy bonds with BBB plus bonds, it will not be lower than 6%. So it's totally disproportionate as far as risk and return are concerned. It should be at least 6% of return. So instead of investing in a corporate bond, you get 2.577%. So it's a reduction of 4% of return annually. You should tell people clearly that this money is not spent for return. It's not for this kind of return. It doesn't matter even if there's a total loss. Then you should tell Hong Kong people whether the $6 billion should be used to achieve a normal rate of return. And now with this disproportionate rate of return, you are still willing to do this with the benefits which are abstract in the document. And you should tell us that this is a normal rate of return expected of a normal decision-making process. I think the member is concerned about the financial return, 6% return, and then it should be done. But as a development bank, some members have said this is money dumped into the sea, and that is to say there's no return whatsoever. I said at the last meeting that normally a development bank like this would have one of the articles to use the dividends for distribution.
However, the development banks are to help regional development, so they don't distribute dividends actually. So this investment does not aspire to this kind of return. Fernando Cheung, 3 minutes. Now the $6 billion is our admission fee, right? Now, for joining the Asian Infrastructures Investment Bank, which is spearheaded by Beijing, and to my understanding, this admission fee, as the Undersecretary said, is not for the sake of returns, it's to become a member. Now the AIIB is a multilateral financing mechanism. It can lend money to, I believe, mainly One Belt, One Road countries and other countries to develop infrastructures. And Hong Kong has the opportunity to gain some business out of these infrastructural projects, maybe as intermediary or professional consultant, offering services. Now, at the same time, I understand that there are other financing platforms such as the Asian Development Bank, the World Bank, IMF, and to my understanding, because Japan didn't join the AIIB, Japan will inject funds into the ADB. And I saw reports saying that in the next 5 years, they will invest over $100 billion in ADB. And there's a Silk Road Fund headed by Beijing. It's over $40 billion in capital. So there are lots of funds internationally to help these countries, including One Belt, One Road countries, to build up their infrastructures. And these financing platforms take into account the services offered by places such as Hong Kong in terms of consultancies. So I don't see what difference the $6 billion makes. We don't have to invest the $6 billion. If there are these large-scale infrastructural projects, Hong Kong will certainly be considered for its services. So my point is, where's the value for the $6 billion? It's public funds. Can you explain? You are not looking for return. Please press the button again. Chen Chi-chun, 2 minutes. Now, the pro-establishment members have less and less patience. Now, we spent 2 sessions on $6 billion, and they are losing patience, and they want the chairman to get to vote casting. Now, there are no projections, unlike in the case of the Disneyland funding exercise. Now, we are asking the question for the public. Now, $240 million, that seems to be cheap. Now, you spend $640 million for the reunification anniversary. So, now, I'd like to ask the question by Lo Kun Chung. Now, you second some people to work for the AIB. Now, was there reporting of this action? Now, we don't know whether we will support joining the ADB, but you spent the money already. So you say that we try to sow the seeds for better relations when we become a member. But for the question by Mr. Law, we wouldn't know about it, or was it covered in other committee meetings? Is it at the request of the AIIB, or did we volunteer? And what's the money spent for? Answer briefly, please. Now, in Finance Committee document, we previously provided information about the secondment of personnel. They work on administrative support and the building up the system and the human resources. It's not directly related, but it helps the IIB when it starts working. It helps to develop its systems. Now, Hong Kong public civil servants gain a lot of experience by working in these international organizations. They gain in vision and experience. Fernando Cheung, we spent $6 billion for a 0.7% voting share, but I don't see what additional business this brings to Hong Kong. Whether we become an AIIB member, these projects can make use of Hong Kong services. Can you explain the economic benefits of the $6 billion? Now, several members asked this question, and I will just repeat. Now, the $6 billion are to support the working capital, the cash flow needs of the AIIB. Now, many other members are already lobbying the AIIB for to sell their services to the AIIB for financing and debt issue, etc. Now, if we become a member, we stand a much better chance. They might still come to us, but the opportunity would be less. So it's like in the case of ADB. Now, now we know that the in the case of AIIB, what's different from the ADB is that you don't have to be a member before you can take part in the services. But in practice, that may not help us very much. Please be reminded to make 37A submissions. Home. The AIIB makes it clear that it lends money for the countries to build up their infrastructures. So what does Hong Kong have to sell? Under Secretary, what can Hong Kong sell? Yes, the AIIB is lending to countries with very low ratings like Myanmar, Bangladesh, Azerbaijan. They don't have money, so they couldn't get commercial loans. So the AIIB lends them money to build their infrastructures. So what does Hong Kong gain by your projection? Chairman, we haven't quantified the benefits for these countries when their infrastructures are developed, when their economies are better developed. Then we stand a better chance in participating in the management of the projects and in the construction, bidding, and when they come for financing, they might come to Hong Kong. So it's difficult to quantify. Yu Chung-yin, 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Now, the AIIB documents are different from what you said. Now, you regard the investment as devoid of tangible returns, but the AIIB document says that they do conduct cost-benefit analysis. And they also mention a figure, that is, they require a rate of return for 8 to 20%. So that's what they look for. So they look to investing in businesses with profit potential. So why is it that you don't anticipate making money? You just look for intangible returns. When I answered the questions just now, Mr. Chairman, now the question earlier was how we regard the projects, what's the rate of return that we would accept. And I explained that Hong Kong is investing in the capital, so we don't have any requirement regarding the IRR. Now, on the projects of the AIIB, the members are right. They, for instance, I'm reading a document on Bangladesh, the natural gas infrastructure improvement project, and they do have cost-benefit analysis on the projects. And the way they calculate the internal rate of return for the economy and the weighted average cost of capital, but they don't have an absolute figure of 8% or whatever. Now, say, take the Bangladesh example, they have an analysis which says that the internal cost of Lo Kun Chung, 1 minute. Please press the button again. Now you're using Hong Kong people's money, which otherwise would have served Hong Kong, and there's no consultation. Now, if the Silk Road Fund asks you for officers to be seconded, will you do the same? Now, we're not talking about $6 million. Now the $6 million for those the cost for those officers is not a small sum. It can serve very useful purposes. Now, would you try to recover the money from AIIB? Now, members said that we wanted to we try to satisfy China's international ambitions. No, I'm asking about why you let civil servants offer service, provide a service to international organizations. As I said, this is not to fulfill ambitions, but this is to let the civil servants help in the development of the IIB and for our civil servants to gain experience. Should I take 2 minutes? Just now I asked the Undersecretary, when we join the AIIB, do we have visions that we want to bring to the AIIB? And the Undersecretary said that they do have their own visions. I want to be more specific. Now the AIIB, now they have set a social and environmental protection framework. Now, focusing on protection of environment and on heritage. Now, but they only have a requirement for lenders. Unlike the ADB or World Bank, they don't have any independent complaint mechanism. So if there are complaints, AIIB will not undertake the matter for those complainants. Now, if Hong Kong becomes a member of the Board of Governors, will we propose that that there be a mechanism to enhance social and environmental issues? Now, in our document number 6 of 2017 to 18, we said that in June this year, the AIIB consulted the stakeholders to seek their views on a complaint mechanism. So the AIIB does have such a plan to set up a complaints mechanism so that the AIIB can enhance compliance and respond in a timely manner to the public. Dr. Fernando Cheung, 1 minute. Now, just now I asked if we become a member of AIIB, what specific impact would it have on bringing business to Hong Kong? And the Undersecretary said that there would be many more opportunities as a result, only if we become a member. So I'd like him to be more clear. Now, regarding the financing platform of the AIIB, if we are a member, now, if we get involved in these infrastructure projects, would the terms be different from those for non-members? Now, if the projects have been assigned to Bangladesh, Indonesia, and so on, and if they want to get consultant service for issue of that, would they approach the member countries first? Please press the button and please leave time for the Undersecretary to answer. Shiu Ka-chun. Now, supporters of the proposal tell us that there would be huge commercial opportunities. Now, if we become a member, otherwise we would be marginalized. But there haven't been any detailed assessments and reports. Now, Pan-Democrats point out that there isn't any significant difference if we join. Now, I don't know whether the Undersecretary can provide a specific response on that. Now, we hear people say that the benefits outweigh the costs by joining. Now, whose benefits? Whose costs? Now, how are those benefits allocated? Now, as Dr. Kwok Ka-ki said, in the mainland, the benefits go to very few individuals, but the costs are borne by a large number of people. It's the same for Hong Kong. If we join the AIIB, would China benefit or would Hong Kong benefit? And what would be the cost to Hong Kong and what would be the cost to China? Now, I don't know very much about how the AIIB operates, but I've been thinking about these issues. All along, I hope that the Finance Committee can scrutinize the project carefully. We should do more with the power we have. Now, I'd like to respond to the pro-establishment camp. We keep asking questions. We are doing one thing. We don't want the Ledge Code to become a cash machine for the government.
Those members who are in support are insistent on their ways. The government has also been very insistent on its way. You have never considered the plight of Hong Kong people. You have not been able to allay our worries. You are just being overbearing, and you are trampling upon our rights. And I think this happened in the Disneyland item, and the same is happening here in relation to this AIIB item. And this is a feeling that I have all along, and I hope that the Undersecretary can understand it. I've said many times that if we don't join the AIIB, in relation to setting up a sub-office, if we say we want to people to use our expertise in project negotiation, etc., I think we can strive for that to be happening in Hong Kong. But if we are not a member, I believe other members would also strive for such activities to be held in their country. So I think the priority will go to the members first. In principle, I think we can still try to get some returns, but if we don't join the AIB, then that will have an adverse impact on our undertaking such activities. Ms. Claudia Mo, 3 minutes. For this AIIB item, all of us, we know that there is some political consideration in this. China is spearheading the project. It wants to fight against the World Bank championed by the U.S. The U.S. and Japan have not joined. Why doesn't the U.S. join the AIIB? The reason is obvious, but then Japan is not joining as well. They said that they do so out of political consideration, and in fact, the finance minister of Japan told the international media that we have to study, what the strict lending standards are of this AIB spearheaded by China. Will loans be can borrowed easily, and they are just having a small circle type of operation. Now, we are having free trade and globalization, but the finance minister of Japan also said that he will have to look at bear in mind the assessment of political items, environmental and social aspects. Eddie Ju is very concerned about environment, And Xiu Ka-chun is very concerned about the social impact as well. We don't know. I mean, there is very little we know, and yet we are trying to rush into it. You are jumping on the bandwagon. Australia would like to do it because they are located in the southern hemisphere. They want to take part. While Hong Kong is a premier international financial center already, I want to save $60 billion for the public, $6 billion for the public cover. You said that we must join, or else we'll be losing out. Well, what about Japan? Oh, it has lost out, right? It's a big country. Well, it may be losing out, and we should not be losing out like them. Is it really the case? You come from the financial background. Is it totally impossible for us to save up this $6 billion? The title is capital subscription in the AIIB. So you say that this is a thing that we must do. Is essential. Is it totally impossible to save up this $6 billion? Undersecretary, for the $6 billion, if we are really to save it, then we will not be able to gain the extra returns that have been mentioned. In paragraph 3, we set out all the benefits to Hong Kong, including that this would be a good demonstration of the one country, two systems principle. Mr. Edward Lau, 4 minutes. I'm very happy to hear Ms. Claudia Mo saying that Hong Kong is part of China. She seldom made that kind of comment. Ms. Claudia Mo referred to the fact that the U.S. and Japan did not join. We can understand why U.S. takes that stance, and she doesn't understand why Japan is not joining. I think she's a bit naive here. Maybe she's not clear that apart from the World Bank and IMF, there is also the ADB, and the greatest shareholder of ADB is Japan. And the presidents of ADB have all along been Japanese. Mr. Eddie Ju referred to vision. We are also discussing vision, whether it's the World Bank or what. They share the common aim of poverty alleviation in the third world. So apart from investing in the third world countries, they are also influencing the economic development models in the third world. They will also ask developing countries and third world countries to follow their prescribed economic development models or directions. And the AIIB has made it clear that they would like to help out or invest in infrastructure projects very needed by countries in the region. I'm not an expert in finance myself, but Ms. Claudia Mo referred to the fact that the U.S. and Japan are not joining. Now, some 50 regions are joining that include the U.S., Italy, France, and so on. And they are not Asian countries. They are faraway countries, but they are still willing to make the investment or participate. Maybe they don't stand to make a profit. Well, if they can't wield more influence through joining, they won't join, I think. So in maybe some Asian countries would like to please China, so that's why they are joining. But say for the UK and France, what are the reasons for their joining? So we can further consider that. So should Hong Kong be operating behind closed doors ourselves? And should we just be an observer of the AIIB, just be an onlooker, seeing what's going to happen? Or should we be an active participant? I think it's subject to our discussions, and I think we should be an active participant. We should try to play our role. Of course, we have to be confident of ourselves too. if we think that we should make an investment and expect a return, then I mean it doesn't work that way. I believe that we have good advantages in finance and other areas, and we are very competitive. And I understand that if we are not a member of the AIIB, well, please don't interject, please. Then we may be marginalized, and we have fewer opportunities. If we participate, then we can have more contact with other regions and districts to understand what they're thinking about. So we will be able to strive for certain projects. I think this is something that is worth our consideration. Mr. Junius Ho. Actually, at the panel meetings, you've discussed this, and on the meeting of the FA panel on the 13th of March, the paper is CB 660/1617-03. All the points have been listed, and for this paper, FCR 2017-18-2, I think the same facts are listed here. I think the content is very clear. Hong Kong should participate in the AIIB set up by the motherland. This is a new international organization, and at this juncture, if we lose that opportunity, then I think we are being very stupid. And people may think that if we join the AIIB, Hong Kong people are being shortchanged, and as we don't have enough money being spent on our social welfare facilities, we're not taking care of our own problems. And if we do join the AIIB, then that's not a good approach. I think that's kind of a mistaken comment. We are spending quite a fortune on social welfare, education, healthcare, etc. So if we say that we have poor people in Hong Kong and we should not be committing $6 billion into the project, and I think it's a kind of a stupid comment. Well, if you go by the same logic, maybe you should donate all your remuneration towards social welfare in Hong Kong. Now let's get back to AIIB. 75% of the shares are owned by countries in the region, and Hong Kong, China takes up 32.4%, and countries in the region take up 25% out of the total shares. 17 regions or countries are participating, and they have region members and non-region members, and there are a total of 57 signatories to the bank. And the funding is spent on meaningful projects. Simply put, it is helping the developing countries, and it is assisting the neighboring countries to develop. And if these countries develop well, we stand to benefit as well. If we talk about ADB, Japan 15.6% of the shares, US taking up 15.6% of the shares. And people say Japan is not participating. Well, AIIB is their competitor, of course. They will not join. But for Hong Kong, we are international financial center, and as long as an investment opportunity, we should grasp it. Any decision, any move that can help improve our status as an international financial center, then we should do it. If you analyze the data and figures, then this is something essential for Hong Kong. We talk about enhancing Hong Kong's international financial status, financial center status. I think this is a good opportunity. If we don't grasp it, and you remain suspicious all the time, And this is no good. It's totally unnecessary. So pan-democratic members don't filibuster on everything. You are in fact filibustering on this. Well, there is a saying that if I don't have any comment towards you, then in fact you really do have comments on the other person. The more you speak, the more mistakes you make, the more you show that you don't understand the issue. So I support this item, Chairman. And in fact, at the FA panel, we have already discussed this item. And I don't think there are any problems with the details. I think we are here to deal with the funding request only. Mr. Jeremy Tam, 2 minutes. I would like to confirm with the administration. You know that there is this LIBOR plus spread, but you never know the spread level, right? Now, let me tell you, the information is online already. I am astonished that you don't know about the information. On 5th of April, the interest for a project in India on a solar project, $157 million US dollars is being lent out. It's 6-month LIBOR plus 0.6% minus 0.1%. That's the interest being imposed. Why did I give you all the figures? I want to tell the pro-establishment camp members, when the administration tells us that they are very confident about the investment, of course, I know that what we want to achieve is not to really earn the interest. We want to wield more influence. But then, Dr. you referred to the fact that the LIBOR rate can be checked on site. But then you told us that you don't have the figures. But I would like to say that if you go onto the website, if you look at the approved projects information, then you can find the figure. I don't know why the project that I mentioned is not included in the appendix list, in appendix 2 of your paper, and your information is updated till the 22nd of March, and you approved the project, this Indian project, on the 5th of April. And going by the information, India is the second largest investor. So, Mr. Junior, 4 minutes. I would also like to talk about ADB. In 1966, it was established. At that time, we joined without any thinking about it too much. The government at that time was a colonial government. It was a very strong government. We didn't discuss that at all. We joined it right away. I think it's better to have a decision than not having any decision. Well, we took buyout 0.5% of the shares, and the subscribed capital is around 800 million Hong Kong dollars, or rather 800 million US dollars, and that is 5.4 billion Hong Kong dollars. And up to 2015, the contracts that we received is 960 million US dollars. Maybe the British government tried to force through the initiative. You said we were shortchanged. It goes the same for the Disneyland project. Maybe you found that you were initially shortchanged, but on a long-term basis, we might stand to benefit. If we don't if we don't grasp the opportunity, it will be gone very immediately. At that time, China was a sovereign state when the ADB was established, and the ADB was set up by U.S. and Japan. Japan was subordinate to the U.S. in a way, and we subscribed $5.4 billion in shares of the ADB. You didn't say anything about that. Now the motherland now set up this bank, and you had all sorts of opinions on it. What is there to worry? If China wants to swindle money from you, they will not swindle just $6 billion. There is no room for discussion on this matter. You still want to filibuster on this matter. This is meaningless. Well, make a decision very soon. Don't waste people's time. Well, if you have good reasons, I will support you. But if it's an issue which is not controversial, don't engage in filibuster. Let's spend our time on more meaningful things. Now, coming back to AIIB, you said that you will be deceived. Well, let's take a look at ADB. In 2015, you have contracts. You get a contract worth $962 million. Now ADB is shrinking, so we'll get more opportunities under AIIB. But it doesn't matter as regard the project size that we will of the projects that we will gain in the future. So for whatever initiative that can help us maintain our status as an international financial center, we should work on it. You sounded as if $6 billion is a large sum and is a bottomless pit. I think you are exaggerating things. We built this short-term central link. The cost has risen from $50 billion to $80 billion. Well, please don't filibuster. Well, let's make a decision and do things, whatever we should do.
Miss Claudia Mo, 2 minutes. Well, Mr. Junius Ho is so funny. No discussion. Just pass it. We're talking about big sum, $6 billion. You say go ahead. No need to discuss it. And you're saying that this is a big enterprise. And you say this is not a trap. Well, this is a Freudian slip. Well, you might have thought that there's a chance that it's really a trap. Yes, in the colonial days, world, it was regrettable. We were under the rule of colonial government, but now we have Hong Kong people administering Hong Kong. Well, if you say that whatever China does, we must join, well, then you may as well invest the money without asking LegCo. ADB was set up in 1966 under the auspices of the UN. And the US was the leader. Why don't you tell us what happened to China in 1966? China experienced the Cultural Revolution when the other countries saw their economy take off, and intellectuals were persecuted, some committed suicide. And in 1986, ultimately, China joined ADB. From 1986 to this day, China secured sovereign loans of tens of billions of US dollars. Mr. Junius Ho, 3 minutes. I said there was no need to discuss it because there was some discussion in the Financial Affairs panel. There was full understanding of the matter. I was talking about not having the repeated and lengthy discussions. When people of Hong Kong see the capacity, the work capacity of this council or the efficiency of this council, they feel like cheated. You just say whatever you want. If it's for gatekeeping purposes, okay. But if you just continue to drag our feet, we have so many things to do. I'm not joking. Well, we say what is right to say, but for things that are not right, we should pause and rethink. Well, there was already many opportunities to discuss the matter at the FA panel. Well, we had a 0.5 shareholding in ADB, and we're going to have 0.8% in AAIB. Well, you talk about what China did in 1968, 66 or 86, and now they have a spacecraft and Tiangong and Tianzhou, and the docking of the two vessels. We participated in 1966 in the 1966. So you're talking about a very different thing. We welcomed discussions that make sense. People of Hong Kong gave us their votes in order that we can achieve progress. I'm a bit agitated here because some members seem to have forgotten that we are here to serve the people of Hong Kong. What should be discussed? Well, you are talking a lot about conspiracy theories. We don't need to be worried about how the $6 billion is to be utilized. It's for the bank to consider. Mr. Chu Hoi-dik, I was referring to the social and environmental protection framework, Article 65 or paragraph 65, talking about social responsibility of the borrower. According to this document, the AIB may undertake the articles in the lending agreement. Does the Hong Kong SAR government agree with such a loose interpretation of the obligation of AIB? Well, we did not take part in the discussion underpinning the framework. We believe there will be negotiations leading to these clauses which use words may or not knowingly. Is the result of the negotiation and believe that the obligations are suitable for AIB. We have spent some 7 hours on this item, and we have more than 70 speeches delivered, and 30 odd members have spoken. Although some questions have been repeated, we are going to have some members who will speak for the 6th round. They will be given 1 minute each. So let's have the list. Mr. Leung Kok-hong, Tanya Chan, Mr. Chu Hoi-dik, Claudia Mo, Mr. Jeffrey Lam, Starry Lee. Well, I meant to say that I would give the floor to those remaining members. But for the other members, they will be given one last chance. I'll read out the names. Leung Kok-hong, Dr. Fernando Zhang, Tanya Chan, Chu Hoi-dik, Claudia Mo, Jeffrey Lam, Starry Lee. After this round is completed, you have another opportunity to speak for 3 minutes, and then we'll proceed to the vote. So far, we haven't got any 37A.
Well,
you have 1 minute, and then I'll give you another 3 minutes. I believe there will be ample time for members to speak. First, we have Mr. Jeffrey Lam. You have 5 minutes. You don't have to spend all the 5 minutes. Well, if you say so, Chairman, on this item, I want to express my views. Hong Kong is an international financial center. Almost all banks in the world have their headquarters or branches in Hong Kong. Why are these banks interested in setting up a branch in their branches in Hong Kong? It's because we're successful, whether it's for business reasons, for business or infrastructure or poverty alleviation. And they can do what they want to do in Hong Kong from this moment to 2020. In the coming 12 to 13 years in this region, annually speaking, we need 1.7 trillion US dollars in investment to cope with the need for economic development or to carry out poverty alleviation programs. Where does the money come from? If you ask for donations, you may not be able to get the money. There are many organizations which would raise capital. If AIB uses Hong Kong as a treasury center to do the investment and to raise capital in order to help these countries to develop, are we just helping others and not helping our own people? Every year we spend a lot of money on our infrastructure and on other developments, economic or otherwise, and we also spend money on the poverty alleviation. As I've said, AIIB is not about helping others, not helping ourselves. It's a multilateral development financial institution. The objective of AIIB is to help developing countries, to assist these countries in developing their economies and to help them cope with poverty and to improve the living standards of people in these countries. And if these countries achieve in progress, and if they are doing a good they achieve good infrastructure in their development, it's going to benefit AIIB members, including Hong Kong. So I believe if we can become a member of AIIB as quickly as we can, and I've asked the government this question repeatedly, and that is whether the government is going to strive for a treasury center of AIIB to be set up in Hong Kong. And also Hong Kong can host more seminars and conferences to facilitate a discussion of mutual cooperation and collaborations for further development. If we can organize more financial seminars and conferences in Hong Kong, we are going to help the motherland and other countries in promoting growth. I'll leave some time for answers to my questions. The BPA supports the proposals in the item, and I hope funding approval can be given quickly. Chairman, I agree. we would like the Treasury Center can be set up in Hong Kong, and we have organized many seminars. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority has a division on financial infrastructure. If we become a member, we would be able to promote our industries where we have an advantage. It would be beneficial to the development of our financial sector. Mr. Lee, 4 minutes. Well, I've heard the speeches. They are suggesting that by supporting the motherland, we are bootlicking. It seems that those who are in support of this item will not support giving more money for improving the drug formulary or to help our elderly population. They have not talked about the bottleneck of our economic growth. We are getting a 2 to 3% growth rate every year. We have criticized the government for failing to do the job as a facilitator, and our economy is not getting any particular growth engine, and we are talking about exploring business opportunities for our industries and our professional people. We all know that in the future is in Asia. Through supporting the Belt and Road countries in doing better infrastructure, China will be able to exert more economic and political influence over the development in Asia, and Hong Kong as a member would be able to maintain our status as an international financial center, and the professional people involved would have more opportunities. But we shouldn't say that we mustn't do things like that, or if we want to do that, we are trying to bootleg the country. There are more than 50 countries which have decided to take part, including Australia, a very mature developed economy, France, UK, Israeli, which is very good at innovation and technology, and Korea, and there are also some developing countries. Do they want to dump their money into the sea? I think we should be realistic and pragmatic, and then we can assess whether by participating we'll be cheated. It's not that we can subscribe as many shares we want. As you can see in the paragraph 6, we have only got the 7,651 shares. It's done in accordance with our share of capital. If we want to have a say, we have to do it through our country, through our relationship with China. Well, we should try to exert influence, but of course Hong Kong itself will not be able to do it or to exert the influence we like. We should ask ourselves whether this is going to be an economic growth engine for us. This is a chance for us to pick it right on the development of China. It's also a good opportunity for our economic growth. Well, more than 50 countries will be members, so it would be very beneficial in maintaining our international relationship, and it would be helpful to Hong Kong in order to maintain our status as the most internationalized city in China. And don't pit this against livelihood expenditure. We have sufficient money to spend on livelihood issues. Ms. Tanya Chen, at first, when I heard that we are going to invest $1.2 billion, I thought, well, we might as well represent ourselves instead of asking some other people to represent us. The Undersecretary said it's not related to the Belt and Road Initiative. And now Mr. Lee said well, it's about helping the Belt and Road countries to improve infrastructure. So at the end of the day, by spending $6 billion, we get a chance to attend a meeting annually or to take a picture, but we have no say. I wonder if the pro-establishment member really heard us. I asked the Undersecretary which government official would be responsible for reading the documents and to assess the risks involved, and also to provide our views to China. And so far, we don't know who will be doing this. They are going to identify some people to do it. And he said that there are 5 reasons for Hong Kong to join. For example, footnote, $900 million for 45 years. Tomorrow we are going to assess the spending, the budget for Kai Tak's sports stadium. It's just 1/3. Will be represented by some other people. We don't know who will be assessing the risk. We spent $1.2 billion. We just got a voting right of 0. something percent, and we just say yes whatever they ask us to do.
Just now, Mr. Ho Kwan Yew said the ADB is actually shrinking. Now, well, it's a matter of how we respect this opportunity of participating. Now, the official responsible cannot give us an answer. Who is going to serve in this case? Now, you should have planned because you are sure to get enough votes. But we don't still have the answers yet. Now, we are trying to have a rational discussion. How much risk can Hong Kong people bear? We say we need a lot of infrastructure, but we are now investing so much money to engage in high-risk infrastructure for others. Now, I have looked at the projects, the data. Now, can we bear the risk, the high risks? Claudia Mo, 1 minute. I still have doubts. Now, this discussion is about a funding request. Now, the wording you used, worded by the Secretariat, is like subscription. It's seems to be a fait accompli. Now, it seems that we are already owing some people some money already. Okay, please answer the question. I don't quite understand the question. How about the words 營繳? Well, aren't you coming to apply to us for funding? The words you use give the impression that it's a done deal. So it can be discussed, right? Next, Chu Hoi Dik, 1 minute. A rule of procedure? What rule of procedure? Just now, when you stepped out, I explained why we have to enter the last round. Some, like you, press the button, you Chu Hoi Dik, Fernando Cheung, and you are in the 6th round. And then after 1 minute, every person has 3 more minutes. Chu Hoi Dik, 1 minute. I'd like to give the Undersecretary time to answer. I spoke about May, knowingly, the existing social and environmental protection framework. Now, you said that there has been adequate thought. Now, if the AIIB hasn't taken on enough responsibility after the Hong Kong government becomes a member, will it speak out on those issues? When these documents come up for further discussion, of course we can express our views. Now it's about within the constituency. Now, will the AIIB spend money to verify whether the projects are in keeping with that framework? Brief answer, I do not know about that. Now normally the compliance is handled by the lending organization or country. Fernando Cheung, 1 minute. You can use your 3 minutes. You don't let him answer. Now he has 3 more minutes. I'd like him to answer. All along I have asked the question which the Undersecretary has not answered. When we joined the AIIB as a member, how do we gain more businesses? Out of the 12 items, now say the Bangladesh AIIB investment $60 million to improve the natural gas pipelines. Now, recently I saw the news. Now there is a Chinese national enterprise that will purchase the gas fields in Bangladesh, and if they get the borrowed money and then they build the pipelines, so they benefit. But how does Hong Kong benefit when we pay the $6 billion? What do we gain in financing and in infrastructure? Now, as the members said, we are able to participate in the operation of these projects, in the construction and so on. Now, if the AIIB engages in financing, if the Bangladesh needs additional funding, we can participate. Leung Kwok Hong, 1 minute. Now they are all gone. Now in AIIB, in 2016 ADB, Azerbaijan $600 million natural gas pipelines, rating very low, extremely low, they can't repay. Now Amman, port development, Pakistan, they can't repay. Indonesia 46 again, Pakistan 19, Bangladesh 40, Myanmar none, that is no rating. So you lend money to them, the AIIB is going to lend to them. Actually it's paid by the mainland, they are the major shareholder. So nobody engages in such business. Now even those who invest in the capital don't really pay. Now you don't use the money to improve people's livelihood. Now time is up. Now if you wish to speak for the last 3 minutes, please press the button. If no one wishes to speak, please press the button. Law Kun Chung, 3 minutes. Last 3 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Now, the administration hasn't provided the figures. When we sign up, will we get some real benefits? This is not substantiated. Now, the AIIB approved 12 projects. Do the members get business from those projects? Maybe not. It depends on whether our strategies in Hong Kong are in keeping with the energy strategy of China, and then with the AIIB goals. So people are concerned. They feel that the AIIB and the One Belt, One Road projects may not be sustainable. Unlike what the pro-establishment camp said, there is no assurance. When China talked about the One Belt, One Road, the GDP projection is very far from being realized. There are many signs showing that these projects may not be all that profitable. Now, you build infrastructure, you try to gain allies. Now, but would that benefit Hong Kong? Now, the administration all along refuses to tie this to One Belt, One Road. Now, that's false. Now, the President Xi Jinping also related the One Belt, One Road to the work of the AIIB. Now, it's trying to benefit each other politically. So this is certainly paving the road for One Belt, One Road. So we shouldn't be taking part. It's not a good project. So this is our stance to be spelled out in the last 3 minutes. This is a low return, high risk project, and it may be a broken deal. There are unforeseeable problems. All these AIB projects are high risk. Do we have to invest for $6 billion of public funds? Leung Kwok Hong, 3 minutes. Now, Chairman, it's not yet 7 years, the 6 years. Now, only one country, Oman, has a rating that is 78. That is, it stands a chance of repaying the loan. Oman is very far away. I think it's in North Africa. Now, Myanmar has no rating. They're going to get the money to build a power plant. Now, for mainland China, all this is reasonable because they have to export their production. Now, some people thought that the callable capital has to be paid up, but actually it doesn't have to be. It's only if China defaults. But you certainly have to pay the $1.2 billion. It's quite unlikely that you recover that. And even if you recover the money, it will be very little after inflation. And you say that you don't invest in improvement of people's livelihood. Now, just the airport is $145 billion. And in 2030, there will be reclamation, $400 billion. Now, that's why I don't want to pay the $1.2 billion. I already told you. You said on the 24th, you go with the gentle elderly person to get the expensive medicine, but then he died before that. Now all this takes up money. You're taking up the money. Now then John Zhang's fund will take up a lot of the money, and same for the airport. We are paying real money to buy the excess capacity, and we have to sing their praises. We are the only place in the world that puts up real money. Just the airport, 2030, that's over 500 billion, even though there's no duplication. Now, if you use the John Zhang's fund to build the infrastructure by 2030, now you see, now you don't spend the money for the poor people. Next, Fernando Cheung, 3 minutes. Now, Chairman, we're talking about $6 billion of public funds. We consider that this is an admission fee to the AIIB, and we are considering its economic impact for Hong Kong. We purchased 0.7% of voting right. It's minuscule. Once we become a member of AIIB, what economic opportunities we would bring to Hong Kong? Now, the Undersecretary hasn't given me a proper answer. He said that we'll have more opportunities than if we don't join. Now, there are 12 projects approved already by the AIIB. Is there any Hong Kong business in that? Did we provide financing or provide consultancy service on any one of them? I don't think so. Now, become an AIIB member, will we be able to get this kind of business? I don't see it, unless you can convince me. Now, for infrastructure, usually we put up actual dollars to buy from others. Now, how much of it is exported from the mainland? It's excess capacity from the mainland that we buy with our actual dollars. Now, Bangladesh, Azerbaijan, all this has to do with the strategic development of China. They have to export excess capacity. But what has that got to do with Hong Kong? $6 billion is quite a lot of money. The pro-establishment camp said that we shouldn't talk about this in the same breath as the people's livelihood issues. Now, of course, we have to link to the people's livelihood.
無論係我哋你講話幫佢融資，其實人哋已經融咗資啦，我唔知我哋點樣再幫佢融資，或者係嗰啲嘅其他嘅。
I don't know how we can help them finance because they already got their financing. I don't see how things will be different when we become a member. Now, 2 examples were cited, Bangladesh and Myanmar. They didn't benefit Hong Kong, not necessarily, because quite a number of Hong Kong industrial enterprises invest in places like Bangladesh, so the power supply projects benefit the local economy, and so the Hong Kong enterprises that are established there. So we don't have a quantification model to tell us exactly Hong Kong will benefit by so many dollars, but for the ADB case, now $96 million of consultancy projects. Now, Hong Kong, I believe, had the advantage to participate. Shu Ka-fai, 3 minutes. Now, I thought that the topic would not be controversial. China had been poor for a long time. Now it has the opportunity to head a world financial organization, and Hong Kong people should be glad, should applaud when we can take part. Now, many members are concerned about helping the poor. I think we should separate the two. Economic development is one thing, and helping the poor is also a worthwhile topic. Now, because the money for helping the poor comes from economic development. Now, Disneyland is an example. The express rail link, we were reluctant to participate. Now, here is again a good opportunity. Hong Kong is an international financial center. If we can have a larger shareholding, I think it's worthwhile investing more. I think the Liberal Party will all support this. So I'd like to ask the administration, now, are there any things that you wish to supplement apart from what you answered already? None at present. Now I'd like to decide whether I should lengthen the meeting. Now, if there are no questions, Chun says we don't need to lengthen the meeting, so we adjourn the meeting now. Thank you.